Ladies and gentlemen, it is the FCS Live Third Half podcast on this wonderful Thursday night. I'm Jared Kleppel along with Gerard Escani over here to my left. And we are pumped for what is going on this weekend on Saturday. Just 2 days away, Gerard.
2 days away. It will be the most futsal I have seen in one day ever.
And probably the most futsal our team has ever broadcasted in one day. Slotted for, we have 6 teams, round robin in 2 groups. So there's going to be I don't even know how many. There's a ton of futsal to watch this Saturday. And Gerard, you actually had a question for someone in the chat already.
Oh, already? Yeah.
So
there's this word on the street is someone was spreading the good word of futsal today, and we want to know more about that.
What does that mean? Spreading the good word of futsal. 2 more sleeps as he adds there. So this weekend, FCS Tour, the first time that the Futsal Champions Series will ever have an FCS Tour. First time the FCS is ever going to have futsal in the summer. There's 2 teams that we're going to be seeing for the first time in FCS since we've been broadcasting. First time we're going to have tons of games, as we mentioned. So a lot of firsts this weekend.
A lot of firsts.
Yeah, which first do you think you are most excited for?
Well, undoubtedly, Chicago House.
Chicago
House.
Yes.
I'm really excited to see them play.
I'm really excited too. And just so you guys know, those of you that are tuning in, this is pretty much we didn't rehearse or plan really anything for today. We didn't talk about it. So this is a real raw look at just us discussing what's going on this weekend. So you talk about Chicago House. Chicago House, if you didn't know, they're one of the teams that is going to be in the FCS next year. So we get to see them for the first time in action on Saturday before the season even starts in November.
Yeah, and one of the things, so if you're following along at home on the website, Chicago House has almost all of their player bios updated, so you can go in and learn about them and see kind of some of the history. They have ties to Olay, they have ties to FC Trizub. Trizub had won the NFPL not too long ago. And so when you think about just the talent in Chicago kind of gravitating to Chicago House, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? I'm ready to see them again against Midwest United, which we may get to see that Saturday.
Yeah, I do believe they're not in the same group.
But I'm anticipating them to go through their group, and depending on how Midwest United fares, that could be a semifinal or final matchup right there.
Yeah, that's super exciting. We'll get to Midwest United and the other teams in the FCS that are participating in the tour in a little bit. But first of all, what makes you excited about Chicago House and what you've heard? You talk about the bios. We're learning the players. We got to talk with a couple of the members. Ramon. I'm forgetting the other guy's name.
Well,
I'm so sorry. I know who you are.
So one of the things Ramon talked a lot about was that development. So you go check out their website. You can learn all about Chicago House and the fact that it's not just a football club. So it's Chicago House AC. It's really about building an athletic club. So it's more about building community. And that's
like a piece.
Right.
Chicago House is like a thing. And then they are now taking their futsal piece, which has been in existence for, I think he said it was 2 or 3 years,
and they have an outdoor team.
Yeah,
and it's really this idea. So they take it from Spain, where the football club isn't just a football club; it's more of an athletic club, and it really encompasses everything. So, one of the things that Ramon was kind of alluding to is in the future, other sports too. You could have a swimming team, a diving team, all kinds of things. So it's not just soccer, futsal. And the thing for me that really sticks out is how important the youth are to building community. And that was one of the things that drew us to Lansing City, myself and my family. And so to see that in Chicago as well is just really attractive.
Yeah, that's really cool. What do you expect out of Chicago this Saturday? As far as their play, right? We know that Lansing City is in there, Midwest is in there, Jenga's in there. Those are 3 teams that we have grown accustomed to seeing. We've got it's going to be about 2 months off for both of those teams since the final, which is crazy. It's already been 2 months, and we're already getting back into it. So there's a few teams that we can know a little bit what to expect potentially. I mean, they might be bringing in some. I think there's flexibility on rosters for this, so they might be bringing in some different players. 2 teams that are brand new, but for Chicago specifically, what are you expecting from them this weekend?
So the biggest thing that I would expect out of Chicago House is to be cohesive as a team. So it's one of the things when we look at some of the various teams we've seen over the year and a lot of the changes in availability, changes in lineups, not every team had that cohesion from one unit to the next. And I'm anticipating that from Chicago House because a lot of those players have played there for a while, have grown up in that club. And and that's one of the things that set Ole apart was that so many of the players at Ole had spent so much time playing together.
Yeah.
And so that's the other part. So they also have twins, when we talk about
they
Ole.
have twins too.
Yeah, they have twins there too.
Oh, yes, Gil. Thank you, Jake. Yes, Gil and Ramon. Great to have them on the show probably a month or 2 ago. But, yeah, Chicago House has twins.
Yep.
No way.
They have twins, and they have multiple people that played on the U.S. National team. And so I'm not sure what level. It's one of the youth teams.
Okay.
But, Sammy Escovel had the chance to try out for Ole. Yeah. We know Jeremy Kleppel has the U.S. national team experience. And so to see some young kids come up through the system at Chicago House, see them get an opportunity to play for the U.S. youth national team, like that's pretty exciting to think about the future of, and so I'm anticipating seeing a high level of skill from them.
Okay. Yeah, and the U.S. youth team you're talking about, that was the one that was it was Dusan Yakitsa who brought those players, right? That's the team you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so. So
okay.
It's
kind of like muddy sometimes, but I believe that this particular team wasn't like a like U.S. like endorsed team, so to speak, and it was after Dusan, I think, was no longer the head coach, but he took some players, and Drew Barney of Lansing City, I believe, was also a part of that.
It's one of the biggest challenges I see right now with futsal in the United States is a lot of this information is just hard to find. So it's not, and it's one of the things that hopefully we can do a better job in the FCS of keeping that information there, keeping the news there, giving you the streams, the highlights, so that if anything, you can stay connected and engaged to what we're doing, and do the best we can to stay connected and engaged with what futsal is doing as well.
Yes, there we go. Ex-national team coaches team, Minnesota Select. There it is. So, and the things that we don't know, we just say, hey Jake, we're not too sure about this, and Jake, can help us out. So, yeah, you're expecting the cohesion out of Chicago House. Some of that, you're kind of expecting that these players have played together a little bit. So some of the growing pains that come with maybe a team like Jenga, who like almost their whole team, majority of their players, we were told by Giuliani Campos, they were like most of them never played futsal before. Yeah. And so not only are you dealing with like your team as a unit, but you're also dealing with lots of players that never played. So you're expecting something very different from those kinds of challenges.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's just take a really small sneak peek into the next season. So I know we're going to have more information after watching Chicago House this weekend as far as maybe what to expect in the upcoming season. But if you had to extrapolate all the way over to November, what are you expecting for them in the 25-26 FCS season?
So when we had Ramon on, he said he expects to be at the final.
That's right.
That's what he said.
That's right.
So at this point, not having seen them play, I can't say I expect that. But what I do expect is for them to be in the playoffs. I expect them to be very competitive and to make the playoffs. Of the 3 teams coming in, I see them as being I see them being the best.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
what he says.
The hot take right now. Chicago House, of all of the new teams, they'll have the best record.
Chicago House, Shoreline, City FC, Innovation City,
and Grand Rapids.
Futsal Club is what they will be. You're putting Chicago House at the top.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the hot take.
That it is. Jose Vicario is looking forward to introducing the new team to the league. Love that. Thanks for joining, Jose. Great to have you on the show. So that's Chicago House. 3 other teams from the FCS, and they're all teams that played in it this past year. So we have Lansing City, Midwest United. Oh, there goes my pen. You want to grab that for me? Thanks. Just like throwing stuff around. Lansing City, Jinga, and Midwest United. They're all coming in. Now, out of these 3 teams, which one catches your eye the most? Which one makes you go? I don't know if you could see. I raised my eyebrow a little bit.
Well, so Jinga has a lot of new players. That's one thing that right away stands out.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they have quite a few new players coming in that we haven't seen before. So that will be interesting. Midwest United.
How many new players are we talking?
Let's take a look.
Take a look. Let's see.
So on the roster submitted so far, we have looks like 4 new players.
4 new players, and how many did they roster? Like 12, 15, something like that?
13 players rostered.
13
Actually, 5. 5 new.
So over a third of their players are brand new players. Wow.
We did not see them at all in FCS last year.
How about some familiar names? Who are we seeing back?
Oh, well, Shota Takabarake.
Yes,
absolutely. He's somebody to look out for. And look, not only is it the skills with him, but it's the charisma. It's one of the things we talk about with Sammy Escovel is that ability to capture the attention of the crowd, capture the attention and the energy in the arena. And Shota's somebody that has that same charisma.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's for me, it's been his last name is what kind of caught my eye.
Yeah.
And as far as on the court, he entered the season kind of partway through last year, and so I still feel like there is a lot for him and the Jinga guys to show. They were surprised to be in the playoffs. That's kind of what they had said.
Yep.
And now it's like, okay, this is their first opportunity to build off of that. Are expectations higher now than they were last year? What do you think?
Yeah, they're absolutely higher. They made the playoffs last year without having a lot of background in futsal, and so I know that coming into this next season, they're going to be very confident. So I had the chance to talk to a few of the players as they left. They lost a disappointing match against Midwest United.
Yep.
Midwest United outplayed them that day, and they admitted that. But what they said coming off is that they love this rivalry that's growing with Midwest United, and they're excited to come back because they want to show Midwest United all the growth that they've achieved over the summer. So we might get to see some of that Saturday.
We should, because they're in the same group. Midwest and Jinga are in the same group. Do you have the schedule pulled up?
Yeah.
So the way that the tour is going to be happening is there are 2 groups of 3 teams, 6 teams total. Each group is going to have a round robin, playing 2 games in the round robin play, and then the top 2 teams from each group will advance to the semifinals. Bottom 2 of each group will play consolation, and then it'll be, I think it's red group and black group is how they had it. So top seed of red group plays the 2 seed of black and vice versa for the semis. So Midwest and Jinga are in the same group, so they will be seeing each other in the round robin play.
2 p.m.
2 p.m.
If we stay on time. 2 p.m.
Which
Saturday.
We don't have a lot of wiggle room.
We don't.
So just in case y'all were wondering, the way it's scheduled out is we have 1 hour for a game. So first game starts at 9 to 10. There's 2 25-minute halves. This is perfect because this is probably great for everyone to understand that the games are going to run a little bit different. So it's 2 25-minute running clock halves, 5-minute halftime. So that puts you at 55 minutes from kick. So then you have a 5-minute break in between games. So there's going to be a lot of futsal and not a lot of break, which is great for watching and is also going to be great for producing. We're just going to have to stock up on food and water and sleep and try to have multiple people ready to go to swap into different positions so that we're not talking for 15 hours straight. Or the camera guys aren't like doing this for 15 hours straight and their eyeballs are like drying
That's
out.
what, the part I think about is for the players. I mean, how many games they're playing that day. So we talked about Midwest last year playing 3 games in 3 days.
Right.
And we talked about the impact that had. Yeah. And although these are not going to be the same level of really like toll on the body physically because it's not the 2 40-minute halves that we're in with the
it's
stop
essentially
clock.
like a half of a game ish.
So it won't be as much of a strain physically, but the fact of having to keep going and keep going and then pause and then go. And so this is something that a lot of the players are really used to. A lot of tournament structures are set up like this. So it's not anything unusual for the players themselves. They probably, a lot of them have played in tournaments like this their entire futsal career. Yeah.
That makes me think, for those of you that are in the chat, if you have any questions about how the tour is going to operate this weekend, or if you just have thoughts and your own hot takes about what you think you're going to see and what to look out for, maybe some of you in the chat know a little bit more about the 2 new teams that are coming in. We have Red Cedar and Capital Futsal. That are going to be coming in to play in this tour. Feel free to put it in the chat. We'd love to get to your comments and questions as well. And so just to talk about the schedule, is there anything else important about how it's run? I mean, the 2 25-minute halves, 5 minutes for halftime, 5 minutes to the next game. The final is going to be the same, right? Like it's
so one of the things that is a little interesting to talk about is that if the game's tied, there will be a 5-minute overtime period.
In the any game, like the round robin and everything, has a 5-minute overtime? I'm actually asking. I'm not like I'm just curious.
No. Well, I'm reading the rules now, so so I'm not sure.
Open for interpretation.
Oh, okay. If it's a round robin game, it will end in a tie. So this is only for the knockout rounds.
Okay.
So just for the semifinal.
Just for the knockout.
Yeah, but
rounds.
In the semifinal, there'll be a 5-minute overtime period, and if it's still tied,
it's right to PKs.
Right to PKs.
So that's what we're rooting for.
Oh, actually, you know what?
In the chat, Agnes Chilinski.
Oh, Chicago House.
Let's go Chicago House. We got some Chicago House fans in the chat. I got some Chicago House fans in the chat.
Correction. I read the rules wrong.
Okay.
All right, so let's get it right. So there's always, in every single match, there will be a 5-minute overtime period if the game's tied at the end of regulation. If it's tied, you'll get that. Now, if it's a round-robin game, this is where the round-robin came in. If it's a round-robin game, it ends in a tie. If after the overtime period, it's still at a tie. It ends in a tie. If it's knockout, they go straight to PK, and they follow the FIFA futsal rules.
So the likelihood that we are on time for all the
very
games
low.
all the way until 8 p.m. is
very unlikely.
Because we have 5 minutes of buffer, and then the buffer is completely wiped out.
If any of them end in a draw.
And there's no way for them to speed up unless we shorten a halftime or something.
Yeah, that would be the only thing is if we shorten halftime, get them going.
But lots of futsal to watch, which is exciting.
Lots of futsal.
It's going to be right here at the Lansing City Arena. We're here in the Lansing studio connected. So it's going to be right here on the beautiful blue court. We're going to be broadcasting all the games live. I do believe we're going to be broadcasting all the games except for the consolation game. We're taking a break during that one because we have to make sure that we're good. So, but they're going to be broadcast right here on YouTube, FCS Live. So we talk a little bit about Chicago House coming in. We talk a little bit about, Jenga has new players. Let's shift our focus to one of the new teams. So Red Cedar or Capital Futsal. I know there's not a whole lot that you can find about Capital Futsal. I do believe this is their first official futsal play. That was I think that was announced. And so don't know a lot about them. Have seen Red Cedar. I do believe Red Cedar has participated in the FCS in the past.
They have.
Tell me more about what you know about that.
Yeah, well, the bios tell you everything.
They tell you everything.
If you navigate to the bios, you can learn a little bit about Aiden Hanchett. And so you know Aiden.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. He had some time with Midwest last year. Yep.
Yeah, and what was interesting about Aiden is he, we've seen some offensive talent at the goalkeeper position. But when he came into the game, he did not seem like a goalkeeper. He seemed like a field player. He spent, and Midwest was down by a lot in every game, so sometimes it's hard to get a full picture.
The last game against Jenga,
that was the closest game. That was the closest game.
They lost by 5, but every other game it was very.
And so he ends up spending a lot more time out of the penalty area than any other goalie in the league. but it's not unwarranted. Like, he definitely has a lot of skill. So seeing him on a team with potentially more talent, and so one of the things, looking at his bio, you take a look at it, and it says that they won the FCS in 2024. So
In 2024?
yeah, so
The Red Cedar?
Red Cedar. So that was in one of the winter, like in the series that happened in the spring. So
like before
this last season of FCS, for anybody following along, we had some smaller like series. So it wasn't a full league, but it was more of like a series, and all of the games were played at Lansing City. So it was less of an actual season and more of like a small tournament. And so they actually won. It looks like a couple of them. He has him in here listed 3-time FCS champion. I think a couple might have been with Midwest, because Midwest had won in the past as well. Midwest used to be Detroit Imperial in Midwest, so they had a really strong core. And then it looks like Aiden had broke off, and he started Red Cedar.
He started the club,
and then they won in 2024. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think they beat Migos.
Interesting.
For that, if I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about what happened in there. I know that the most recent one in 2024 was Detroit Imperial,
right?
Knocking off Midwest United.
Yep.
So I don't know if there was another one before that in 2024, or if it was maybe the years wrong. I'm not sure. But this weekend, what are you expecting from Red Cedar?
If anything, just knowing Aiden, they're going to be incredibly offensive in nature. So we'll see a lot of that flying keeper, potentially even like a fifth attacker. So that's what I would anticipate seeing out of them. Very aggressive.
It's very interesting. I mean, even with all the teams that have been a part of the FCS, but especially for those that aren't and are coming in, for tournaments like these, all you need is a roster for one day.
Yep.
Right? You don't have to put together a consistent team throughout multiple games, traveling multiple times. Every team is going to travel, except, Lansing is going to travel much less because most of their players are around here. But, any one of these teams, it's like we could see a team tomorrow that is completely different than like you saw, Jenga's bringing these new players. Like, how many of those new players are going to carry over into the series next year? Like, all because the registration is not connected, right? It's not like the players you have here have to come, So it's like, I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind with especially the new teams that come in. They're putting together a team for one day. And part of this tour is like, okay, where, to identify talent and identify teams that want to be a part of what's going on. So it's like, once that happens, it's kind of like a test. It's like, okay, where are, these players and these teams at? And then, can consistency be added to it? Because, it's just one day. All you got to do is bring players for one day. And hopefully it's exciting and hopefully it's amazing. But then, let's say Red Cedar goes out there and gets an amazing result. It's like, all right, sweet. Now, where do you, how do you continue that, right? How do you continue that consistency? Because putting together a team for one day is much different than, we saw it with Jenga. It's tough, especially when you have a long travel, to go all the time. And maybe some of these players will see them carry over into next year.
Yeah, and it's a couple of things that are interesting. So Jenga is more of an academy too, right? So it's not just getting a team together. So I would anticipate all of those new players are not players that they just got for this weekend, but are people that are going to be in the academy now in the future. So we'll probably see them next season. As far as Red Cedar, so they have an outdoor team, they have an indoor arena team. So when you think about the variety of players that they have, I would anticipate that a lot of the people we'll see are part of that club overall as well. So who knows what the future holds, that we could see more of them in the future as well.
So a bit of clarity coming from the chat. Jack Fisher of Lansing City explaining the history of Red Cedar in the FCS. He said they played in a small tournament against Lansing City Youth. probably like a high school youth team, and a couple other of local Lansing teams in a makeshift futsal tournament that was under the FCS name. So it was under the FCS name. It wasn't really like an FCS like series. And so that's probably where the confusion is coming from when they say 2024, because the 2024 was Detroit Imperial. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So thanks for that clarification, Jack. We appreciate that. So
got to get Jack back on the show.
We do have to get Jack back on the show. Maybe, Lansing City takes this thing. Maybe he comes on next week.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think to expect from Lansing City this weekend?
So one of the things, if we're expecting anything, is to see their talent come together and gel. One of the things that's a challenge, though, is a lot of these players play outdoors well, and so who's going to show up? And so prior to this moment, I have not seen the roster yet for Lansing City.
Who is on it?
No.
Do I know?
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually live yet either.
Is it not live? I mean, is it on there?
Well, I'm looking right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to find out.
Well, the roster's on here, but I don't know, because this looks just like the
normal roster.
Yeah.
So basically, if it's anyone,
maybe Jack can tell us. Jack, are we going to see you? That's the main question. I wanted to know. Are we going to see you, Jack?
Are we going to see Jack there? I guess we'll have to find out. But we don't have the roster information yet on the website.
Yeah, I know, so I try to go to any of the practices I can with Lansing City, and I've seen a lot of differences in the players, not only from just people that are nursing injuries or availability challenges with outdoor going on, but to see the commitment level and to see some of the players like Luciano that he plays outdoors well, but he just has such a passion for futsal that no matter what, he's showing up. And so I had a chance to talk to him, and he'll go from practice in Grand Rapids outdoor to late at night coming to Lansing City to practice, only to wake up first thing in the morning, go to school, and do it all over again.
Wow.
And it's just like, to see that level of commitment and passion, not just for like a future endeavor or passion, but for multiple sports as well. Because soccer and futsal really are two different sports, and so to see that level of passion is just it's intoxicating, really.
We will see Jack Fisher this weekend. He put it in there, so we're counting on that. Lansing City, it's interesting. When we don't have the roster, it's like I would expect similar to like what we saw last season. I mean, I expect Jack Fisher, I expect Drew Barney, I expect Jeremy Kleppel, I expect David Saltzman, I expect Ethan Castaneda, Conrad Gonzalez. Maybe. I mean, he talked about he wasn't even going to play last year.
He'll definitely be here. He will definitely be here.
He'll be here?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Do you think he's playing?
Well, actually, you know what? He might not. Do you know? Because
USL
2 has a game. So Conrad's one of the coaches with the USL 2 team.
On Saturday.
And they have a game on Saturday.
So he probably won't be here.
Oh, that's a tough call. We have to ask Conrad.
We're looking at maybe like another backup keeper instead of, along with Ethan Castaneda.
So are you familiar with Raziel?
Yes, I've heard I've heard his name, yes.
He's been practicing consistently.
Is he on there?
He's on here.
Okay.
But he was on here at the end of last season. So we never saw him last season, never saw him in practices, but he was rostered at the end of last season.
Okay.
And so Raziel's really strong in goal too. And so he's somebody that is giving a really high-level challenge to Ethan in goal. So Ethan can't just rest on his laurels. He's got to really push himself because Raziel's strong.
Yeah, and I'm actually really excited to see him because I've seen him in a training or two, but I haven't really seen him, put to the test, and I hope that maybe we get a chance to see that. Looks like Lansing City, Jack Fisher, and other Lansing City people were listening because I just have a text on my phone now that says, here's the roster for Lansing City, so now we don't have to wonder. Jeremy Kleppel, Jack Fisher, Drew Barney, Luciano. We are going to see Luciano. David Leonce Nayasaba. How did you say his name? Raziel?
Well, don't quote me on it, but
okay.
Yeah.
Raziel. Ethan Conrad is rostered.
Oh, okay.
As the second goalkeeper. Max Kuhn, and then Coulter Reese.
Oh, Coulter.
I actually don't know, but he's a youth player.
Well,
coming up. So, That's what we have for the Lansing
really
City
the only
roster.
question is like how many secrets do we want to let out there at this point? I have a little bit of an in to know a little bit more about Coulter and everything that's going on here at Lansing City.
I mean, I can't tell you what to say or not to say, man.
You know,
I can just hit the end button, end stream. No, I was kidding.
I'm not surprised. I'll say this. I'm not surprised to see Coulter's name on that list. So in practice, a lot of times the way that Lansing City runs their practices, they'll put their 4 top players on a line, or at least 4 of the players that work the best on the line. And so that's a line that you commonly see with like David, Luciano, Jack, Drew. And then one day, some of those players weren't there. They needed one extra player. And I was initially shocked, and it was Coulter. And Coulter is the smallest guy on the court, the youngest player out there in the training. And seeing his awareness and his understanding of where to be is really what truly set him apart. And so even though he's at a young age and he has some of the just physical limitations of not having that like growth spurt yet, his awareness and understanding of where to be, I think that's what really set him apart and made him a part of that cohesive unit. So seeing his name there, like that's somebody that I would look out for even this upcoming season in FCS.
That makes me really excited because it's always cool to see like young players like that. That's a big piece of what the FCS is doing. I mean, FCS Futures next year, providing this pathway, providing this opportunity. So to see players getting that kind of opportunity, I mean, that'll be really cool to see. I hope we get to see him on the court this weekend, and I think that'd be awesome. That makes me I'm very curious now about the Midwest roster. Do we have their roster?
We do have their roster.
So I'm curious if they're like, you know, because Jenga's bringing some new guys. Lansing City has a couple of new, but mostly the same. I'm curious where they're landing at.
Well, so we will see Jose here. Jose Vicario is in the chat.
All right,
he's their goalkeeper,
he's
so
in
that's
the chat,
exciting.
and he'll be here.
And we got some new players. One of the players, so another young player that I've had the opportunity to watch him in some of the local futsal tournaments, Antonio Tiscariano. I'm not saying that right.
That's all right. There's a lot of
So
wrong ways to
Antonio,
say names.
he is so smooth on the ball. So one of the first things I noticed is that he reminds me a lot of Daniel De Leon.
Okay.
Daniel's not going to be here. At least he's not
De Leon.
rostered.
Okay.
But Antonio is somebody that has a lot of that same skill set and creativity, freedom flowing on the ball. Like he's a player that I would anticipate to be able to beat people 1v1 and create opportunities for other players.
Are we going to see Hasovic? Is he rostered?
He's not.
No Hasovic. Well,
he
might. He's probably playing USL as well. No Hasovic, no De Leon. Are we seeing
Cole Russell's not rostered either?
No Cole Russell. Cole Russell's actually playing for USL Lansing City.
Yep.
So he'll be gone.
I actually got to watch that game too. USL 2-game Lansing City against Midwest United.
Oh.
And so it was kind of interesting. Gio Garcia, he's going to be here. I saw him at the match too. And so it's like,
is he listed on the roster?
Gio's on the roster.
Oh, Gio.
Yeah, so Gio might be playing.
Okay.
And so, I mean, this goes really deep because I've actually seen Gio and Jose and many other players play in the Soccer Rebellion. So
okay.
The last few weekends, the family's been going out to Grand Rapids to go see the street soccer.
Okay, wow.
And it's almost like it's not street soccer. It's still futsal, right? It's just futsal, but it's happening on the pavement, and the courts are smaller. But the part that's really interesting, so many of the players in that league have such high skill that the game doesn't just fall apart because it's on a smaller court. And I was a little surprised by that.
Interesting.
I was really shocked, honestly. The first few matches I watched, I was anticipating it just be ball out of play, like just everything break down. But it's so much faster. It's so much faster. Even when the ball does go out, the court has a fence around it, so the ball doesn't go far.
Yeah.
But quite a few of these players that are here, Gio, Jose, they're going to be out there keeping their game sharp.
Yeah. So a little mix of some like returning players and new players for Midwest as well. So all a pretty healthy combination.
And we're going to see Isaiah Meyer too. So
Isaiah Meyer
that
will be back.
That was
awesome.
A big miss for them in the playoffs, and that really hurt. He's such a key figure for that team to have to play the finals without him. That just
that's right.
everything he did all season, and he's such a solid player.
Because he was on restriction, right, for college? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and it's one of the things. So Anthony Leone is one of those players that plays both ways, really strong offensively, defensively, and Isaiah Meyer was so similar to that. And to miss one of those players in the finals,
he was definitely a key player for them.
So it'll be great to see him back. And then on that note, Anthony Leone's going to be there too.
All right, we'll see Anthony Leone there. Amazing. That's awesome.
Joseph Abden, he got a lot of playing time for Midwest United this year. So
some familiar faces.
Yeah, a lot of familiar faces. And your second favorite name in the league to say. Second favorite name in the league to say.
Aguillon.
He's going to be there. He's going to be there.
Let's go. That's amazing. So I feel like the next most logical question. Are you about to add on?
Yeah, look, no. So Midwest United and Jenga are going to play, and I don't think we ever really settled the debate of who has the best name. So if we could get them to go 1v1, Takabatake and Aguillon, and just
that's hilarious.
Even if we don't have like a tie at the end and there's no draw, no overtime, let's just spend the 5 minutes in between games with them going 1v1.
See who's got the best last name. That's hilarious. So I feel like the next question, and this is for all of you watching, I want to know your thoughts too, but I'm going to ask him first because he's here. What does success look like for the teams this weekend, right? Because we have teams that have played in the FCS. We have a team that's going to play in the FCS.
Yep.
We have two teams that are not a part of the FCS coming in, playing in the tour, local teams. What does success look like in the FCS Tour, Lansing?
Well, 6 teams, really that success looks different for about 4 of them. Right, so for Midwest United, absolutely success is them winning. That's it. And I know that's Gio. That's why everybody loves playing for Gio, because he wants to win. And for them, anything less than a win is going to be a disappointment.
So if Midwest United does not come out as the champions of the FCS Tour Lansing, that's not success. There's no success there.
So I'm not saying there's no success.
Oh, okay.
But for them,
it
will it will be seen as a letdown.
Okay.
I mean, they have a lot of strong players, and they're not bringing their full team, but they have a lot of strong players.
Yeah.
Lansing City's still young, right? Still growing. Jenga has a lot of new players. They're coming in. So Midwest United has to be really optimistic coming into this thing.
Yeah.
They just had a great season. They lost in the final to Ole. We know Ole had a dominant season, so they come here, and it's Lansing City with still a lot of the same players, right? Jenga with some new players coming in. So Midwest United has to think, all right, looking at the lineup, this is ours.
Do you think they're the favorite this weekend?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. Are they your pick to win?
Are they my pick to win?
Maybe that's later.
Yeah, well,
that's later.
This is the part that's interesting.
Be thinking about it, everybody.
Yeah, I'll say this.
I'm going to ask you that question too.
The part that's challenging, if they were playing 40-minute halves, I would say yes.
Okay.
Right? If they're playing the 40-minute halves, the full games, because Lansing City, their first line is probably going to play 70-80% of the time. And the level of quality over the course of those games, I don't know if they'll be able to sustain it. So I think they have the best line, right? That was one of the things I said throughout the season last year too, and part of it is I do see them in practice, and so I see a lot of the things behind the scenes that sometimes we don't even see in the game because we don't see those lines together.
Yeah.
Right? And it's one of the challenges of seeing behind the doors, everything that's going on, and then not seeing some of that stuff play out in the games. But they're not as deep, right? And that's the part, one of the things that has been so clear going to Grand Rapids and not only watching the USL 2 match, but watching these Soccer Rebellion matches, is how much talent is in that city. And so if any players
Midwest,
right,
Shoreline's close.
But here's the thing:
Grand Rapids Futsal Club, we got four teams
coming, right? But then BIH is there still.
Oh yeah,
BIH.
Yeah. They were in the FCS before too. Yeah.
They won the FCS too, right? In the past before they had a really strong team, and now they play arena. But a lot of their players still play futsal. Yeah. So Fikret plays for BIH.
Yeah.
Right? And Fikret, his younger brother, Ishmael, he plays for BIH. He's a goalie. And so I'm anticipating seeing him in the FCS soon.
Wow.
Right? And so they have all this talent coming through. So I don't think Grand Rapids Futsal Club is going to have a challenge at all building a team. They don't have a team right now, and that's a big factor of why I say Chicago House is going to be the best coming into the season, because they've already been playing together. But Grand Rapids, it's like they have so much talent in that city.
Yeah.
So any team coming from there, in a lot of ways, almost has to be the favorite just for that factor alone.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of talent coming out of that city. Jose Vicario agrees with you. He puts the trophy in the chat. They're looking for a win. How about a team like Chicago House? Like, what is success for them? This is their first any kind of FCS exposure. What's success look like for them?
Yeah, and vastly different Midwest United. For them coming in, success if they play Lansing City toe-to-toe. That's for me what is
not
going.
Midwest United.
Well, they're in the same division.
Okay,
as
so
Lansing
you're
City.
saying
because
they'll definitely get to play Lansing City.
Yeah, they'll definitely play Lansing City. We don't know if they'll play Midwest United.
So
but
that game
is going to be huge. That's the thing that I would anticipate that Ramon and Gil, Ramon and Gil are probably like anticipating, because they got the film on Lansing City, so they're going back watching the film. Now that we just gave away the roster, they're going and looking and they're saying like, all right, who's there? But that's the game really on my mind to watch out for. I was trying to take a look and see what time that is.
I think it's the last. I think it's 3:00. I think it's the last one before
it is.
Yeah,
that's the last. Yeah. 3:00. Whew.
Yeah. So as far as key matchups go, that one was also circled for me, Lansing and Chicago House. Yep. I mean, that'll be like you mentioned for Chicago House. It's a test of this is an FCS team. Yep. At their home court. Though it won't be like a home environment like a normal game for Lansing City would be, but it would be a good test. I would have to agree that for Chicago House, I mean, just like participating is is success for them.
Travel, just getting into the flow of that. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
playing here, being on TV,
and that's not to like lower any other objective of play, but it's like there's so much information that will be gained and so much that can be learned just by them coming and participating. Getting a chance to definitely play against Lansing City. They'll also play Capital Futsal, which is, to me, the two new teams that are not a part of the FCS.
Yep.
They're just like big question marks, right? I mean, we might have some roster information on them, but they can kind of bring anybody, and it's like you don't know whether it's you don't really know what to expect.
Yeah, and that's the game. That's another game I'm really looking out for that reason, right? First game of the day. Lansing City against Capital Futsal, because we don't have any idea of what to expect or anticipate with Capital Futsal. I mean, we know a couple of players on their roster. We know some of them got some experience with Flint City, the outdoor team. And so it's like, we know that they've played soccer.
And this is their first futsal competition of any kind, I believe.
It's hard to find anything online about the team itself. And so I don't think that you're wrong.
Yeah. So though it's kind of just, we'll see what happens when those teams play.
Speaking of that success for Chicago House, just being the experience of traveling, one of the biggest challenges for Jenga last year was all of the road trips. So
and Chicago will have a similar,
and they will. But being able to do that before the season even starts, so several months before the season starts, they actually get to experience it, see what it's like.
Yeah.
Are we traveling at night? Are we getting hotels? Like, what's going on there?
Adriana agrees 100%.
Yeah, so it's going to be huge just to figure out the logistics.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I mean, that is obviously not a part that is flashy. It doesn't get the attention, right? The broadcast crew is not traveling on the highway, filming your bus to make sure all your players got on and everyone's got their food. But
looking at the split,
it's a big challenge. Yeah.
Jenga at home, Jenga on the road. Looking at the players they played with at home and on the road.
The results. I mean, it was night and day.
Two different teams, and figuring out some of those challenges is really what's going to be so important for Jenga, and then Chicago House to be able to get that leg up before the season even starts.
Yeah.
That's going to be great for them.
That'll be cool. How about for, you mentioned Jenga. What do you think is success for Jenga?
they want to beat Midwest United. So I think that's a huge part. So it's not just about making it out of their bracket, not just about getting to the finals, but they were, salty after that matchup against Midwest United in the playoffs. They did not like the taste in their mouths. You could just see the disappointment on them, and then they had to go on the road trip back, and just to really let that loss marinate over that whole road trip. It's just not how you want to end the season.
No.
And so now
it's been there marinating for a long time.
It has been. And now they get Midwest United.
Is that their first game? Or they play?
It's not.
It's not. Okay, so
it's not. So they warm up. Yeah, they warm up. They play against Red Cedar at noon, and then the very next game is Midwest United.
It's Midwest United at 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's I am very curious to see what we're going to see out of Jenga this weekend because the playoff game against Midwest United was not close. There was a moment that it felt close, but the game was not close. And so it's
the first half was close.
That's what I'm saying. There was a moment where it felt close.
It did
but
feel
the game
close.
was never – it wasn't like – if Jenga would have – like the reason it felt close was for – there was like extra stuff going on.
There was a lot going on.
Like the game was never really that competitive. And so I'm very curious because it's like, okay – do they play a competitive match with Midwest United? Because from the way I see it, it wasn't really like, they went toe to toe and it was, and Midwest got the better of them this time. It was like they were outplayed the majority of the game, and it was close for a moment because of some, kind of crazy things that happened. There was, some fouls that weren't called, and some people were like, there was a period of time where there were no whistles and people were just like falling over and stuff. So, but even with all that happened, they couldn't use that momentum even to help them even in the second half. So I'm like, okay, what do we see from them, right? Like I think that will tell a lot is, are they able to, play Midwest competitive in this game, after the loss, in the semis.
So if this is right, if we have this roster right, we're going to see Corey Weisenhunt.
Okay.
And he was a really fantastic goalkeeper for them early in the season, but he only played at home.
Yeah.
And then once Tomisawa came, I don't think that we saw him again. No. I think there was one game where they kind of split, and then that was it. And we never saw Corey again the rest of the season. I think that's a huge difference maker for them. So
we'll have to see.
Yaya did okay in goal, right?
He scored.
He scored. He did score. That was a shot.
It was.
But with Midwest being as creative as they are, like you need somebody really solid in goal to be able to thwart that attack.
Yeah.
And when I see Corey, it's going to be behind between the pipes. It's like, oh, okay. And then there's quite a few players we just don't know, right? And I think that's the other part is I am surprised to not see Nicholas Rumasek. He was a difference maker for them all season, and to not see him here, it's like, oh, okay. So I don't know if that's by choice or if some of these other players have maybe like passed him in the pecking order, So I don't know. I mean, it speaks a lot to their culture if they have these players coming in just filling in. For a player like Rumasek to miss a match.
Yeah.
See how that impacts their play.
So we're kind of getting to the point where we can start making our picks and select who we think maybe is going to have the upper hand, who's going to win, how this might play out. So if you have thoughts, who's gonna win the groups? What are the semis that we're gonna see? Who are we gonna see take the cup at the end? Winning the FCS Tour. Let us know in the comments. We're gonna get to that question in just a second. But first, I want to talk about what success looks like for Lansing City. We didn't talk about that yet, right?
No.
What does it look like for them? I mean, we're seeing several players that are the same. We have a couple of new guys. They just missed the playoffs last year after a really exciting game against Ole at home that they lost. What is success for them in the FCS Tour Lansing?
So, Lansing City wants to win, but they don't measure their success on the wins. They really measure it on the development. And so when you think about what is it that they're looking at from that development perspective of what's going to determine it, I think the biggest thing is the mistakes. right? So we talk about that last season.
Yeah.
I remember there was one game, they lost by a few goals and you broke it down. And you're like, well, every single one was a breakdown. Like every single one. It wasn't that we talked about Olay at one point. It wasn't that Olay created the goal. It was that Lansing City gave away the goal.
Yeah.
And so they just have a number of those mistakes throughout the season that come at costly moments.
Yeah. Very simple.
Yeah.
But costly mistakes.
Yep. And so for me, that's what I think Jeremy's looking at for his team. Matt Alashari's looking to see, like, can we have the composure to do the right thing at all times?
Yeah.
Like even the basic thing, right?
Right.
Or like substitution. So like that's,
yeah.
Subbing at the right time can mean the difference between being prepared defensively or being completely out of position.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things. And again, I think that's the other part of being here and seeing some of that in the practices, seeing some of these mistakes and how they happen and when they happen. And it's one of the biggest challenges for professional athletes is not only do you have to train your body to physically take the toll and have that stamina, but mentally you have to have that composure to where when you're tired, do you still know your position on the court? When you're tired, do you still know the basic rules? I mean, how many times during the season did we see kick-in violations from teams?
Yeah, we did.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's one of the things, especially bringing somebody like Coulter in, how's he going to deal with the pressure and the situation? So I feel like the tour itself is a great place to integrate somebody like that into the team because it is a lot lower pressure than going up against somebody during the FCS season.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because you talk about the mistakes that Lansing City have had. It's like this has been true about Lansing City in the FCS.
Yep.
This past year, they had like some of the most amazing goals out of everyone. I mean, like not only incredible, like the one we had where Luciano turned around and hit or off the corner, but like also
the one
just
from
like
Saltzman in the corner. Like how
when
did
he was falling down?
Yeah, the angle.
Yeah, I was talking about the corner kick that was lobbed to Jeremy.
Yeah, that one.
So they had some really exciting ones, but they also had some really great build-up play that we saw, some of the best in the league. But at the same time, there were these like simple, small like detail things that were just so costly that you make the mistake and you're giving up a goal, and it's like. To me, that is the number one thing for Lansing City is when do we see those no longer happen? Because when those no longer happen, like if you go back through the last season and you were to take away every goal that, or even 75% of goals that happened that was just a mistake and given away, I mean, they might even be the 2 seed in the playoffs last year. I mean, it's very possible because their games against Midwest were both tight. And
I mean, look, I've said this a number of times. The line that I wanted to see that I thought was the best line was Trezor Crispane, Drew Barney, Jack Fisher, and Jeremy Klippel. Like, that's the line that I said was the most talented top to bottom. And that's before I really got to know Luciano. And then to see that you have Luciano or Trezor, that you can, and when you insert either one of them into that first line, it completely changes the way they play.
Yeah.
And that is really powerful. And it's one of the things that when you can switch up your offense, when you can switch up your defense, when you can switch that in the middle of the play by one player coming on or off, like it shows you the complexity that they're able to play at. Right. And so it's basically going from like a 4-0 to a 3-1. And so it might not seem like a big difference, but the way that pivot plays in both of those formations is so different. And Trezor is somebody that is growing to a place to be able to play that 4-0, but Luciano does really fantastic work with that.
Yeah.
Right. And Trezor's his ability to hold possession is probably the best in the league, right up there with Fikret.
Yeah, he does do very well, and Trezor is actually hurt this weekend. That's why we're not seeing him. We are going to see Oliver Timblow as well for Lansing City. So before we get to predictions, and if you have predictions, put them in the chat. Who do you think is going to take the championship this weekend in the FCS Tour Lansing, the first FCS Tour of all of them, not even just this year, but the first of all of them? Success for... we'll put the two teams we don't know a whole lot about together, Red Cedar and Capital Futsal. Success for them.
I think a win.
A win.
Yeah.
Just a win anywhere.
If they get a win anywhere. Yeah, so to get a win, Capital City or Capital Futsal would have to beat either Lansing City or Chicago House.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know we don't know anything about the team, so it's hard. But from everything I know about Chicago House and Lansing City, that's a huge success to be able just to put a team together and then come beat either of those teams.
Yeah.
Red Cedar, you know, they've had some success, it sounds like, at maybe some of the lower levels of futsal with younger players, and we know they have some success with players and I'm not sure if it's arena or if it's just indoor soccer, but then they have outdoor team as well. So they have success outside of futsal, but for them to be able to come in, I know they scrimmage Lansing City a lot, right? But to beat them, actually they would be in the other bracket, but to be able to beat some of these teams in a competitive format, I think that would say a lot because they would have to either beat Midwest United or Jenga.
Yeah.
You know, and those are both teams that were in the playoffs of FCS last year. So if Red Cedar can come in the tour and beat somebody that was in the playoffs for FCS, what does that say about their club? What does that say about their level of ability?
I think what it says, if that happens, is that for one day and one game, they were able to beat one of those teams.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me, I think that for these two teams that are, you know, coming into the FCS Tour, I think success doesn't have much to do with this Saturday. I think success for those two teams is what comes after. Because, like I said earlier, you can put together a team for one day and, you know, play amazing. But it's a consistency. It's the commitment. It's the practicing and training together. It's the travel. Because these are all logistic pieces that everyone in the futsal world is facing, you know, particularly right now where, you know, players, you know, this is a semi-professional league, right? Players are not getting paid. And so it's like you have to have this something more. And so to me, it's like, it's great to, you know, see teams come in and get some wins or play competitive. Like, that's awesome. But I think the true success for these teams is what do they do with what happens this weekend? Because I think if I'm a team that's coming in like that, whether I have history playing futsal or not, but I'm, you know, being a part of this one-day tournament, you know, but I'm not a part of the league, you know, for me, it's whether we do amazing or we do terrible. There can be success from either of those scenarios. It's just what do we do down the road? How do I use this to learn? How do the players use this? You know, and can this be a building block? You know, if this team desires to have a future in futsal and to be a part of futsal in America, how is this weekend a step? You know, to what's to come? That's what I think success for those teams would look like.
Yeah, being that we don't even have the roster for Red Cedar yet, and we don't know some of the background for Capital Futsal, I think about the players, right? And so even though you look at success from the club standpoint, like the players, you know, what does it look like to be successful for them, especially if this is just the team that they signed up to play for the Saturday?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Is success getting recognized?
Yeah,
you know,
maybe.
Getting an invite. So some of the players that play on Lansing City have developed through some of the teams like this, like Red Cedar, right? Like, and so sometimes these success isn't even necessarily.
Sorry, did you say some of the team players for Lansing City developed from Red Cedar?
So,
because I don't think that, I'm pretty sure. I mean, maybe I'm mistaken, but I'm pretty sure the Lansing City Academy players, like, they've come up from the Lansing City, not from like Red Cedar.
So Red Cedar, like, there's some local teams that play Lansing City in scrimmages and stuff. And
okay, I see what you're saying.
And some of those players have participated in other scrimmages or practices as well. So it's almost like the community in Lansing.
Gotcha.
If that, without giving away too many details. Like, that's
tiptoeing around here.
So it's really about opportunities that come out of it. That's what I think, for the players' perspective, for the Capital team, and for Red Cedar. I think it's for the club. Yes, it's about what do they do with that. But I think the players,
the same for the players.
Yeah,
it's like what happens.
Yeah, what happens
after after this opportunity, whether it's with that team or with something else, or yeah. Well, I think it's one of the pieces that makes for an exciting tournament is you have some teams that you kind of have an expectation, but then you have some teams it's like, there's a question mark here, and we're rolling the dice, and we're going to see what happens. And it could make for some exciting games. It could make for some big numbers on the scoreboard. We don't really know, but we'll figure it out on Saturday. So, who do you think? What do you think about the results this weekend? We'll end here. What do you think about the results this weekend?
Well, I think the final will be Midwest United and Lansing City.
You think it'll be Midwest and Lansing City? Okay.
Midwest and Lansing. Chicago House and Jingo will come out.
Okay.
But they will be the second seed.
Okay.
In both of those, and they will lose.
So you expect Red Cedar and Capital Futsal to not make it through. So that'll be Lansing City and Chicago House in. I can't remember if it's red or black, but
I'm not sure.
One of the two.
Yeah,
and then you're expecting Jinga and Midwest in the other one.
Again, not knowing, I haven't seen Chicago House before, so I mean, with that being said, I think they're going to challenge Lansing City. But again, it's a condensed game, so even if Chicago House is deeper than Lansing City, I don't think that they're going to be able to compete with that front four. And I would imagine in this shorter format, it's going to play to Lansing City's favor.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that because we did see Lansing City last year do a lot of heavily relying on probably 85% of their players.
Yep.
So with the shorter game,
I think it plays to their advantage.
It could, no, I definitely see that. So you got Lansing City and Chicago House coming out as 1-2, and then Midwest and Jinga. So then Lansing City plays Jinga and Midwest playing Chicago House. And you think that Midwest Chicago House, which if they play that's an exciting matchup
it would
as
be.
well.
Yeah, that would be
you think Midwest will take that one?
I do. Yeah, it's hard not to, right? The way they played the entire season, they're bringing a huge portion of their roster back. They've proven that they are one of the best teams in the country, and they just so happen to be in Grand Rapids with Olay, which is arguably the best team in the country, right? So, it's...
And Vicario's very good in net. And I'm not just saying that because he was...
No, he's solid.
Shouting out. But he's definitely, in my opinion, one of the best keepers in the league, for sure. So,
but they're missing some talent, and so
no Hasovich, right?
We got Jake saying Chicago House is a dark horse for sure, and they're gonna be solid. And the fact that that Midwest United doesn't have Hasovich, doesn't have Daniel De Leon, doesn't have Gerardo Montañez, they're missing some of their key figures, and so they still have lots of talent, but they're nowhere near as deep as they were. And how does that play out? That'll be the third game. If everything plays out that way, that would be their third game of the day.
Playing against Chicago House?
Yep. And the other part that is going to be a little off for Midwest United is depending on how they stagger it, those time slots are going to have a couple of hours in between each game.
Yeah.
And so that it's is that good or bad? Is it better to be playing back-to-back? Because Jenga has 2 games back-to-back. Is that better?
With a 1-hour break.
No. Well,
yeah, because it's noon and then 1 o'clock break and then 2.
Oh, you're right.
So they're not directly back to back.
Not directly. So the 1 hour break.
Yeah.
So okay.
But it still is a factor of you get in do you get an hour off or do you get 2 or 3 which definitely plays. So Jake saying he's got his eye on Chicago House. He could see them catching the FCS teams off guard. For me, Chicago House is a question mark just because we haven't seen them. But I have a feeling that the 3 p.m. game, Lansing City and Chicago House, could be the most exciting game of the day.
Yeah.
Not to take away from what the final would be, but there could, I feel like the first portion of the schedule kind of builds up to that game because it's just the anticipation of who I think Chicago House can be. I think that could be a really key one, and it might decide, there might be a lot on the line for it. It could just be the 1 and 2 seed. It could be, one of them fighting
whoever wins that match, I think goes to the final.
Okay.
I think that whoever wins that match goes to the final because the winner of that one most likely plays Jenga, and I think that's the cutoff, right? And it's hard, right? Jenga, like you talked about, has talent, but they're not on that same level as Midwest United.
Yeah.
So depending on who they bring, we'll see, who comes.
Yeah.
But for me, I look at that as kind of being the talent gap.
Yeah. So with a Lansing Midwest final, as you're predicting, who wins?
I got Lansing City.
Lansing
City. I know
Pulling
Jose's going to hate that one. I know. But
he's going to shut off the stream
again,
right now.
Look, the whole format, I think, plays in their favor.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because of how strong that line is.
Yeah.
Right? And then now that Luciano, Jack's healthy, Drew's here, now you have – that's most likely going to be their starting line.
Yeah.
And now you have somebody like David Saltzman coming off the bench. Like, he's so solid, and now you got him coming in. And the fact that they don't sub as much as a lot of the other teams do. So it's one of the things with Midwest United. Yeah, they have a really solid 4, but they're going to be missing Fekrit, and they're going to be missing Daniel De Leon.
Yeah.
And so, who's coming in there, and who's replacing them? And I think that's going to be the biggest factor of what determines whether or not Midwest United walks away with it.
Yeah. Well, very interested to see how this turns out. Jennifer thinks all the teams are coming in hungry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think all the teams are going to be coming wanting to play. I mean, whether they're FCS teams or teams that are coming in for this tournament, I think all the teams are going to want to come and play and ready to win, ready to compete. So I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be worth watching, and we're going to be bringing all the games to you right here on the YouTube channel, FCS Live. We're just 2 sleeps away. And Chicago House says, watch out for Chicago House futsal. Guys are definitely hungry, so they're coming in expecting to show that hunger. And, hunger brings a lot of things.
It does.
It really does. Hunger brings a lot of really good things. So I'm excited to see Chicago House as well as all the other teams. If I had to make a prediction, you make some really good points about how you see it going. I do think, the question marks in my mind is like, I honestly, I feel like Midwest and Jenga are the least question marks in my mind.
I agree.
Because I think Lansing City, the question mark is, do they have the bad mistakes? I think for Chicago House, it's like, what is the expectation, or just like, who are these guys? I haven't seen them play. And then the other 2 teams, it's like, it could be anybody. So there's a lot of question marks there, but I think it's likely that Midwest and Jenga make it out with Midwest on top. And Lansing City and Chicago House, I think it's going to come down to their game on who comes out. I want to say Lansing City comes away with it. I think I could definitely see the same final, Lansing City and Midwest. I think if Chicago House wins, that 3 p.m. game, that would shake things up a little bit.
Oh, it definitely would.
It definitely would shake things up a bit.
And it would give them confidence too. It would that's the part I think that is really the thing to look out for, because they have a lot of young players with Chicago House, and to see, kind of like we talked about with Coulter for Lansing City, what does the competitive environment and spirit look like? Like how are they able to overcome? Because the physicality, I'm anticipating being a lot higher than what they're used to.
Yeah.
But again, not necessarily knowing where they played before, like during the season in the FCS, the physicality was on another level. And when they have to go up against Jenga, like that was some of the difference makers in the game between Midwest United and Jenga, was how physical Jenga was getting, that it completely threw Midwest United off their game.
Yeah.
And they're a team.
The whistles weren't being blown.
That is why. That is why. And so it made it really tough for Midwest United to play their game at all for that burst of time, right? And if you take a younger team, less composure, less experience, and then you bring that level of physicality too, how do they respond to that? And so it'll tell you a lot about these teams as well.
Jake says the pro YouTube talk is to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the matches. That's what he said, and I'm not going to say it, but that's what he said. If you guys are interested in following along, you can feel free to subscribe to the channel. We're just excited to bring you the games. A comment from Chicago House thanking the third half and excited for the broadcast. We're excited to broadcast your players and your team and to display your hunger right on the TV for everybody. So we're excited for this weekend. We hope all of you are excited as well. I'm getting excited just talking about it. Futsal is back, at least for one day.
For one day.
So
we have more. We haven't really talked about why, right? Like, why are we doing a tour? And I don't know if you know why, but one of the things that I think about of a why, not that this is the why, but in a lot of the competitions across the world, they have these seasons that teams play in, but they also have kind of like the cups and competitions where it gives people almost a chance. It's not just like an exhibition where it's just like one day.
Yeah.
But it's something to give a little bit more importance, right? So it's not just these pickup games or something.
Yeah.
And so you think about teams traveling across the country. We got teams from Chicago, Cincinnati. So literally across the entire Midwest, teams are coming to play.
Yeah.
And it has something more than just a game, right? So it's not just a game that they're coming to play in or some like local tournament, and they're actually going to be now competing with teams that play regularly in the FCS,
yeah,
right? And so like you talk about, they kind of get to measure where they're at least on one day,
yeah,
compared to what these other teams are doing for the season. So it kind of gives them
yeah.
So when we have these other tours, that's the part that I really look to, because right now the FCS isn't at a place, there's not the money in futsal for teams to travel across the country for seasons, so we won't be able to see if teams can sustain that level of play for an entire season, but we could at least see if they're able to do it for a day.
Yeah.
Right, and so then it gives you kind of that like starting point of where we're at with futsal in the country.
Yeah. What an exciting time we're in with futsal in the United States. I know I'm very excited, and FCS Tour, first ever FCS Tour this Saturday, hosted in Lansing, the first of 3 this summer. All games broadcasted on FCS Live. We hope to see you back right here for the games this Saturday and the other tours this summer, but definitely for this Saturday because that's only in like 2 days, so you can definitely plan for that. And that's it. Do you want the last word? Maybe that was the last word. I don't know.
Yes, lots of last words.
That was basically your last word.
Yeah, look, don't wait to watch futsal, right? Don't wait. Find opportunities wherever you're at, whatever city you're in.
In person, you're saying?
In person. Go to the games, right? Go. So just get involved somehow, right? If there's any team that you follow, go to the games. If you're a part of these teams, go to other games. Like, that's one of the things that has been so much fun going to these events in Grand Rapids, is seeing all of the players from Midwest and Olay watch each other play, cheer each other on, and you when they play each other, it's all out war.
Yeah. But
then when they're not playing, they're supporting each other. And for futsal to be successful and for it to grow, like, we all need to support each other in it. And so that's really the last word. It's just like, go find a game, go find a match to watch.
And tune in to FCS Live this Saturday to see the FCS Tour. It's going to be Lansing City, Chicago House, and Capital Futsal in one division, Jinga Midwest, and Red Cedar in the other. 6 teams, 1 champion on top at the end of the day. 10 futsal matches from 9 a.m. all the way until 8 p.m. is the scheduled final.
9 to 9.
9 to 9. That's a long day. That's going to be fun. Lots of futsal coming up this Saturday. I'm Jared Klepp along with Gerard Ascani. Thanks so much for tuning in to the special edition of the Third Half Podcast. That's all for tonight. We'll see you later.